I was thinking about what it means to reflect about things that have happened in the past, about decisions that have been made, and how they affect the future. And it occurred to me that I've never actually set aside discounting this, I've never really set aside a time where it's just a reflection. And even if I do, I'm not really sure what it adds. What I'm trying to say here is that I don't think setting aside time to reflect is really all that useful, is all that helpful. I think that reflection tends to seep into the cracks of life, and that some of our greatest realizations may come while showering, while cooking, while walking to school. I mean, there's a reason that the subreddit is called Shower Thoughts instead of just Thoughts. What can I really do by reflecting? Can I think about what happened? Can I play out the different events and write them down? I suppose that sometimes that would be useful as a method of clearing up what happened. But when you reflect, you don't set like a programmable routine where you're like, this is what happened. So I suppose that next time something similar happens, I will play the routine and that will make me remember this and decide, okay, I'm not going to make that decision again. In practice, it doesn't work like that because we're mostly guided by the subconscious, not the conscious. When you make a decision to go with red or blue, you aren't logically thinking it out. It just kind of pops up, you know? And I think that's what happens with learning too, learning from the past, is that you don't tell yourself to be like something. You remember it. Your brain does it for you. I think the comparison I would draw would be like exercising. So when you exercise, you take the time to destroy your muscles, and then that's it. You didn't grow your muscles by doing 1,000 curls. You set the place for growth to occur, and then at night, when you're not working out, that's when it sets in, your muscles begin to grow. But things don't happen immediately. No, there is a period where it's like settling in, and that period doesn't have to involve reflection. You could have something very eventful, very major happen, and you don't necessarily have to set aside anything to learn about it. It settles in. It's like a cloud of dust. As you go through your day, it just seeps into the cracks of life. It's amazing how the mind is so intuitive. I suppose the best way to think of it, like biologically, would be that paths in your brain are getting worn down, and then as they do so, things just start crawling into those paths. You have the neurons in your brain, and as more signals go through it, they become more malleable. And I think what might happen is that once you get an event, it just goes through once. Like, it doesn't matter how major it is. I guess it kind of does. Depending on how emotional you are at the time, you might remember a little bit more, a little bit less. But still, compared to some of the habits that you might build, it's not really a lot. Well, then as you go through your day, as you sleep, as you dream, it starts getting worked through. You start noticing things that relate to it. And then it's like a never-ending cycle. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper until it's a nice worn-out path. And next thing you know, about a year later, something that's important to you, that's something you use. It's part of your worldview. I brought up something there, and that's about dreams. We don't quite know how dreams work. Scientists don't quite know, but you can kind of guess that would also relate to it. It's replaying events, seeing what makes you react, and then gouging that out as something that's important for the day. So you let go of the unimportant stuff and you apply the important stuff. I don't mean just remember, I mean apply. As in, it becomes a part of the decision-making process. This is nice in that you don't have to set aside time for reflection. But it also kind of sucks, because when you're in turmoil about something and you sit down and you try and think it through, you try and get your mind off it, you can't. It's just the brain is at work and you can't stop that, and you can't speed it up. You can't wave your hands to the dust to try and make it settle down faster. That'll just make it slower. I came up with some ideas like a week ago when I actually wanted to record it and it was actually in my mind. Let me read it off. It's like terrible handwriting. Who is in control? When you decide to be sober, is it because you have consciously decided to? Or your subconscious is gone, nah, that's a bad idea? What's the distinction? It's about determinism. Are you just doing what you are doing because the little spontaneous reactions are happening in your head, such that just enough stacked up that you decide, okay, enough with being sober. Enough changing happened that now you have a cycle in your head that goes, okay, don't do that bad thing. Who's in control? Your experiences or you? And yes, this sounds an awful lot like Clockwork Theory, where Clockwork Theory is basically that the entire universe and its path forward is already set out. There's a big problem with Clockwork, and that is quantum mechanics. I'm not a believer that the universe is set out. I don't think that we can predict. Suspend your disbelief here and pretend that we have some kind of machine capable of doing all the calculations necessary. I don't think we could predict the path of the universe. If we had all the data, I don't think we could do it. Not if we knew all the laws of the universe, just because of the randomness, just because of quantum theory and stuff like that. But I do have to wonder, that's something that feels very long term, as in, yes, 1 billion years from now we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But right now, as you're going through your puny little human life, who is in control? Are you really controlling yourself? Or are the chemical reactions just happening a certain way? Does my disbelief in clockwork actually mean that much when I still know that, yeah, if it's this time of the day, I'm probably going to eat lunch just because I'm hungry, or if somebody says this to me, I'm probably going to react angrily. I kind of hate the whole idea of this is just the way I am. And of course, the clear thing is, like, given my examples of sobriety or whatever, this whole clockwork idea, this whole, like, semi-clockwork, like, not actually determined, but somewhat determined, it includes change. And I'm not saying that you can just decide to remain the same person. The decision to become a different person and act differently is also all part of this. Like, the idea is that your path is set out, not who you are. I think the solution to this, just not to go insane, is just to ignore it, really. Like, yeah, there is a part of me that goes, well, everything I'm doing is just chemically set out. It's the line between consciousness and just being a hunk of flesh, and I'm inclined to say that at a certain point, it goes into consciousness. I actually think the comparison I would use for this is a computer, like what's in front of me right now, what's recording my voice right now. Technically, a computer is just made up of transistors and electricity and switches, hard drive, solid state drive, and you get what I'm saying. It's all mechanical. But I don't think of it that way. I don't think of my desktop as being a bunch of lights controlled by something in my laptop. I just think of it as a screen. I think of it as a portal into something else. And it's that same kind of transformation that happens with the human brain. So yes, it's easy to look at the brain as just being a bunch of chemicals and neurons, and it's easy to think, okay, so any mass decision I make is just programming in my neurons, stacking up as it loops over and over again until I decide, okay, here's the trigger. That's technically what we're made up of, but at a certain point, it gets so advanced that it just gets beyond that. We go beyond the chemicals and now we're in consciousness, and the consciousness is kind of different. It becomes us that is making the decision. And yes, us is something composed of many smaller, more predictable things. But when you add it all up, predictableness becomes unpredictableness. And maybe this is a result of our understanding. Maybe what limits us is how well we can comprehend things. For example, I have an abies in front of me, and I think of it as a bunch of beads on a few steel dowels or whatever, and then all held together by wood. I don't think of it as anything else. I don't think of the beads as blending together into something. It's composed of its parts. is what I would say. But as for the computer, which I comprehend a little less, like I understand the basics of it, but I can't look at it and just see it laid out in front of me. Because I can't comprehend it as well, it turns into something else. It is now a computer, it is now a screen. It is not a bunch of metal and elements. So I think the way this kind of works out is that my sanity of being a consciousness is the result of being limited. My humanity is because I cannot understand or truly comprehend anything below that. People talk about AI taking the world, about how AI could be so much smarter than us, could be so much superior to us. But if an AI could be, if you made something that, yes, models the human brain, that thinks for itself, but it doesn't see itself as a consciousness, then you haven't really made something living. I would say part of what it to be alive is to be limited enough that you cannot understand how you're not alive. And if we had a theoretical being that acted the same way as us, essentially with the same neurons or whatever, but was smart enough to understand those neurons and understand how everything about them happened, they wouldn't be alive. They couldn't understand that they were alive. They could only understand that they're composed of logical, deterministic things. I think I'm going to end it on that note. I'll probably play this back and try and get a little better recording for any parts that I didn't quite go through right. But yeah, that's about all for today. Thanks for listening. Check out my Tumblr and my new blog if you want to. Oh, about that blog. So basically, I think I talked about earlier about how I found the value in voice and the emotion that I could put forth in these podcasts, and that was why I wanted to do them. But you know, sometimes it isn't worth it. Like some of these thoughts, I'm just putting out shitty thoughts so I can get into things that are less shitty. And other times, like I don't really care about what the emotion is. It's not really something that's too close to me. So I started a blog, and now I'm gonna write shit there. I'm not actually doing it right now because I have to do my English homework, but you know, when I'm less busy, I'll get around to posting more stuff on there. So basically, I'll probably divide it into like these videos will be things that I kind of care about. I mean, to be fair, I'm recording this on a spot as something I didn't exactly think about that too much. In fact, a lot of this just like came out as I was talking. But anyways, the division is, this will kind of be for the more, you know, thoughtful stuff, the things where I feel like the emotion of my voice matters a little more. And then the blog will be for more inane shit. Alright, I'll see you guys later then. Hey, so I'm gonna cut stuff out of this, but I'd like to know that I actually made it half an hour as promised in my original video. So you know, I'm not a complete liar. Good night.